Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at Psalm 97, a song to the glory of the Lord. Now, these Psalms, from starting in Psalm 93 and going all the way to 100, and we're in the middle of that, are a group that I've entitled, and I think probably others have followed this too, enthronement Psalms. They have a common theme of God on the throne, of God reigning, and we're going to see that here as well. Notice we start off, the Lord reigns. Now, when we say that, Adonai Malak, Malak is the word he reigns. It sounds a lot like the Hebrew word melech, which is the word for king. We would say the ruler rules or the king kings. No, that's not good English, but that it's good Hebrew. So the Lord reigns. Let the earth rejoice. Let the many islands, see how earth and islands are sort of compared together, be glad. And notice rejoice and be glad are sort of saying the same thing. So this is synonymous parallelism. Verse 2, clouds and thick darkness surround him. Now, why do clouds and thick darkness surround him? This isn't like one of the Peanuts characters who's got a dark cloud because he's dirty coming around him, but rather this is protective and maybe a bit mysterious. Remember how the Israelites were in the wilderness and in the tabernacle, and the cloud, the glory cloud, came and stood over the tabernacle, um, both to hide it, but to hide the presence of God from the people. If you saw God, that was death. And so that was protective, and I think it is here too. Both protective and, like I said, a bit mysterious. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. So notice he's reigning, he's on the throne. This is the Lord's reign. Continue with that same theme, the Lord's reign. In verse 3, fire goes before him and burns up his adversaries round about. His lightnings lit up the world. The earth saw it and trembled. Notice world and earth are together, and along with the trembling. Um, Verse 5, the mountains melted like wax at the presence of the Lord. Mountains don't melt. So that's, this is showing how great God's presence is. And notice we still have God being present, the presence of the Lord, the face of the Lord is there. And then we repeat that idea, just in case you missed it, at the presence of the Lord of the whole earth. So notice how the Lord's reign and his presence, this is all part of this. Verse 6, the heavens declare his righteousness, and all the peoples have seen his glory. Now we come to verse 7, and what we have here, let all those be ashamed who serve graven images. There's a call here. We've been seeing the worship and the presence and the especially the reign of God. Now there's a counter call. Let all those be ashamed who serve graven images. An image is something. A graven image is something that you fashioned with your hand. You take a piece of wood or rock and you make some sort of image there. And this is a form of idolatry. In fact, the next line says, "Who boast themselves of idols." Now you've got two different words here, but they have the same idea. And so the call then is to worship him, all you gods. Now, notice that phrase gods. That's the word Elohim. Elohim, depending on the context, can refer to God, the singular God, but that ending im is plural. So it's either the plural of majesty when it speaks of God singular, or here, notice, all you gods is just the plural of El, gods. The Septuagint, that's what LXX stands for. The Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Hebrew text. The Septuagint actually renders this angeloi, that is angels. So they interpreted it, and now it's okay to interpret sometimes, but then translations can sometimes be interpretive if you're not careful. And they weren't very careful about this, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have been that way, but they just put in a different word instead of putting gods, theoi. They put in angeloi, angels, and the writer to the book of Hebrews actually picks up on this, I think, when it says in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 6, and again when he again brings the firstborn into the world, this is speaking of when God does this, he says, and let all the angels of God worship him. And so at first glance, this seems to be a treatment of the psalm, Psalm 97, verse 7. That is, the writer of Hebrews is quoting the psalm. Although perhaps, let me just give an alternate suggestion. It might be that instead the quote that Hebrews is given is actually given from the Septuagint version of Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 43, which uses the term in Greek, not in Hebrew, the term sons of God. The now, is that correct or not? I don't know. I'm inclined to take it from here, but I could be wrong. And if so, this is a reference when it says worship him, not just worship the Father, not just worship God, but also worship God when you're worshiping the Son. Did you catch that? Okay, let's continue. So we have this call to worship. It's a call to worship God. The question might be, is it a call to worship God the Son? Maybe, but let's continue. Verse 8, Zion heard this and was glad, and the daughters of Judah have rejoiced. Notice that glad and rejoice. We're going to see that glad and rejoice. That sort of double. They're sort of saying the same thing, but those two terms are going to be repeated. And why? Because of your judgments, O Lord, for you are the Lord most high over all the earth. Now, notice that's actually two lines, and so I don't want to necessarily overly connect them because I think the parallelism is there, maybe. Although when you look at that phrase, "You are the Lord Most High," remember, Lord in all capital letters. That's the term Yahweh. But Lord Most High sounds an awful lot like something that was said of God back in Genesis, where you had Melchizedek, who was the priest of God Most High. That was El Elyon. This is Adonai Elyon, the same Most High, same term, but it's the name of God here. And then it continues, you are exalted far above, and again, all gods. So, is it angels? Is it something else? I don't know, but all gods, all pagan gods certainly, but maybe all angels as well. Again, maybe. So what we have then, though, is Zion's worship. Notice Zion is mentioned here, and the daughters of Judah, they're glad, they rejoice. They're saying in their worship. Next, we come to verse 10, and it is a call. Here's an action thing. Hate evil, who love the Lord, who preserves, and it's describing the Lord now, the Lord who preserves the souls of his godly ones. Do you see how salvation enters the picture as you're describing the Lord? He delivers them from the hand of the wicked. Again, salvation enters the story. Verse 11, light is sown like seed for the righteous, and gladness for the upright in heart. Again, that's the salvation element. That's the result upon the lives of those who follow him. And then verse 12, be glad in the Lord, you righteous ones, and give thanks to his holy name. Now, that's the results then of God's reign that was seen in middle of verse 10 and verse 11. But what I want to look at now is look back again at the ebb and flow of this entire short psalm. I'm borrowing here from Van Gemeren. He was a professor at Reformed Theological Seminary where I received my doctorate. Didn't study under him, but I'm still borrowing this from him. We started off in verses 1 through 6, the revelation of the Lord's glorious reign. We went from there to a call to worship, verse 7. We went from the call to worship to Zion's worship. Notice worship and worship. And then we culminated in the results of the Lord's glorious reign. Notice the revelation of his reign, the results of his reign. And what are the results of his reign? We just said that. the results of his reign are our salvation, which again points me to Jesus. So at first glance, I might not have thought, messianic passage, I'm not so sure. But maybe Hebrews is right in pointing out more than I would have seen. You think about that.